All right, hey everybody. It's indie author Nick Belisi. This is our 20th episode of our Tuesday Night Healing. With me, as always, is Stormy. Stormy, say hi.
Hey everyone.
So tonight we are getting into a juicy topic. Tonight we are talking about sex and intimacy and everything surrounding the lust and love and all those physical attractions and everything. So that's what we're going to be getting into tonight. So, you know what I mean? It's going to be a little juicy, a little spicy. So if it's not your cup of tea, don't feel bad. Log off whenever. But, you know, it's just something to talk about, especially in, you know, we go over a lot of topics with the mental health community and stuff. So that's a big thing. I mean, as we get deeper into the conversation and stuff, you know, there's a lot of examples and things of how intimacy, like physical touch and even non-physical touch, just like the remote possibility of relationship intimacy, you know, it can be deprived. It could be taken away just because of the illness itself or, you know, things that have happened in early adulthood or childhood. And those are, you know, important factors to talk about because it's not things that people like to bring up. You know, if somebody has a history or something like that where they were abused or, you know, handled inappropriately or anything like that, you know, not a lot of people like to come out and talk about those sort of things. So maybe by hearing about it and stuff like that, it kind of gives more justification as to why you might be feeling the way that you're feeling. You know, maybe there's a person you want to get close to, but you just can't because of something that's happened in your past. You know, and there's relatable stories and things like that that we're going to talk about tonight that can bring justification for all of that. So intimacy, what is it? It's an intimate act, especially with sexual intercourse. Not necessarily has to be sexual intercourse, but of course, that is the one that everybody looks at. But there are 4 types of intimacy. There's physical intimacy, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. And we're going to dive into each one of them. And we're going to talk about them a little bit, try to get some justification as to what's going on with those. So of course, the most obvious one, physical intimacy. So I'm just referring to my notes and stuff like that as we go through. It's just I got a lot of extensive stuff on this. So physical intimacy refers to, you know, body closeness, physical touch. So it can involve hugging, cuddling, kissing, holding hands, you know, depending on the nature of the actual relationship that you're talking about. You don't have to be dating somebody to have physical intimacy. You can have physical intimacy with a friend by simply holding their hand. You know, it doesn't have to be in a sexual nature. Physical intimacy is not exclusive, like I said, to romantic partners, though. Parents and children, even friends, can develop non-sexual physical intimacy. I mean, you hug and kiss your children, there's obviously not a sexual aspect to that. There's more to it than just that. This type of intimacy involves a safe touch and proximity that can enhance feelings of emotional closeness, of course. According to, I got a lot of facts thrown in here too. According to like a 2020 study, a physical touch can help build bonds and can reduce perceptions of loneliness. So even those simplistic things of hugging your friends or having that closeness, maybe you're watching a movie, you guys are sitting next to each other on the couch and everything, and you're kind of building on that. That can like decrease depression. I mean, it can help you with loneliness. There's so many things because human beings are social creatures. And when you add in that physical intimacy and stuff, you're giving the body what it needs. So even just a playful touch and stuff like that, you know, it's a positive thing. It's definitely positive. Now, that's not necessarily for everybody, you know what I mean? There are certain people that just don't like to be touched at all, and that might be a deeper meaning and everything that goes with that. So to nourish this type of intimacy, you have to have an open conversation with the other person about their level of comfort, you know, with different types of touch. Like I just said, some people really aren't into being touched and stuff. So, you know, you don't want to just be going up to people and giving them hugs and like kissing people on the cheeks and stuff. Like it's very violating. And I could speak from personal experience. My biggest pet peeve, or anybody that knows me, while working at the window at the post office, is when fucking people touch me. I cannot stand it. I don't like it. I've never liked it. I immediately run into the back like I'm like on fire. Like I gotta go wash my hands or something like that. And it's not just because like the older people are kind of gross when they like lick their money or they lick stamps that have been self-adhesive for the last 30 years. But, you know, it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's always when you're going to hand somebody something, they just have to like get that full palm on there and just like grab your hand like they're trying to pull you over the counter. And you're just like, oh, like what the fuck, man? So, you know what I mean? Don't be overly doing it. Kind of like know your role and your bounds and stuff when it comes to that sort of thing. Because not everybody appreciates that. Like I said, me especially. So another way to cultivate the physical intimacy is to make the other person feel safe with your touch. Not to like overdo it or anything like that. You know, stay within the realm of what your role is. I mean, if you're a friend, obviously you're not going to be touching them in an inappropriate manner if you're just friends, you know. And if you're in a relationship, you know what I mean? That still doesn't give you justification to do it. You have to both be privy to it and both be okay with it. So just know your role. You know, you might want to start when it comes to especially like romantic relationships with like light caresses, soft hugs, kisses on the forehead. You know, it's important to respect everyone's boundaries, regardless of the role. You want to make sure that you're on that level playing field. You know, you don't want to be too pushy and stuff like that, because then, you know what I mean? What justification are you doing? Stormy, did you want to talk anything about physical intimacy?
No, I mean, you covered pretty much everything as far as like the different types of it and that sort of thing. I am not necessarily like, I don't really like people touching me either, but I am a hugger if it's someone I know or, you know, that type of thing. I do like that physical intimacy with, you know, people that I love or care for. But like strangers and stuff, yeah, I'm a little bit weary of that as well when it's like touching me that I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially since like COVID and stuff like that. I mean, you don't know people coughing on their hands and like, you know, pushing shit around like that. Like, there's just too much going on. Emotional intimacy. So, being emotionally intimate with another person means being transparent with your deepest feelings, fears, and thoughts. It involves feeling safe and not judged. It's all about being the same for the other person. You don't want to sit there and not be judgmental, but at the same time, you know what I mean, be judging at the same time. You want to keep an open thing, open line of communication. So if you're talking to somebody, whether it be in a relationship or a friendship or anything like that, you know, you want trust and understanding and loyalty and that exchange. You want to be on the same playing field. Don't be sitting there and, you know, pointing the finger at this person and expecting them not to do the same to you. You know, show each other respect. It's all, you know, everybody gets so hot and heavy about the way this world has become, where it's like me, and having the best thing all the time. But, you know, there's more than that. I mean, we're all human. We're supposed to look out for each other and take care of each other like we always talk about in our Tuesday night healings. And, you know, this is just one of those things. Be there for each other. Have that open line of communication. Express your needs. Listen to their needs. And then see if you can match it. If there's something that somebody needs that you know you're just not capable of doing, just be honest about it and be upfront. That's how you gain that emotional trust. Just say, listen, like, this is just a little much for me. I'm not judging you, but I just can't handle this at the moment. So to nourish emotional intimacy in a relationship, you need to take the risk and be open. However, if both people are emotionally unavailable or fear intimacy or closeness, it's going to become challenging. So this type of intimacy may develop, as most types of relationships do. Parents and children can build their emotional intimacy, for example, as they maintain a sense of curiosity about the relationship. Obviously, your children and stuff are going to look up to you and want to know more about you, and you're always going to have that emotional intimacy with them because, you know, they're your blood. It's your kids. Even if it's not your blood and you're, you know, helping raise another kid, it's still you. It's your family. Same thing with your parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, whoever. You're going to have that emotional intimacy. The same goes for friendship and romantic relationships. Because emotional intimacy can be developed by listening better to the other person and being able to speak clearly and honestly, like we just talked about. This type of intimacy also may require reassurance. Now, despite differences in experiences and emotions, you are safe and with each other because you find support and comfort to express your deepest fears, pains, and doubts. You have to be open. You have to be honest. If you're sitting there and you're holding back the way you feel and the things that you're feeling, you're never going to get that closeness with somebody. Me personally, I'm a very open person. I try to be, you know, to the point and talk about, you know, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking and stuff like that. I find it's a much easier thing when you're open and honest, not only with yourself, but the other person, because you get your needs met that way. If you just stay quiet and just keep allowing things that you don't like to happen or being talked to like in a way that you don't like, then you're only ultimately setting yourself up for that type of abuse. As someone who got out of a relationship with a narcissist many years ago, I never expressed my needs because they were just undermined and stuff. So I wound up having to deal with all that emotional abuse and nothing happened. If I spoke up for myself, do I think anything would have changed? Absolutely not. But, you still have to try and express your needs. It's your life. You're the one that's got to live it. You're the one that's got to carry the weight. If you're not happy in something and your needs aren't being met, move out now. Get over with it now. Stop wasting your life because it's so short. Do what you want in life and just do it by your means. Obviously while staying in your role. It doesn't give you carte blanche to treat people like shit. But, you know it when you see it. The third one, intellectual intimacy. Now, mental intimacy refers to sharing your ideas, opinions, and life perspectives. It may also involve intellectually challenging each other and being open to learning or at least considering another person's ideas. Having a stimulating discussion, like we're having right now, about different topics and feeling safe about expressing your own views is a part of nourishing that mental intimacy. The key is to show a mutual respect, even when you have differing views. To cultivate intellectual intimacy, you may want to keep a curious attitude. It's important to share points of view with the intention of learning from each other more than debating. That's what it's about. Everybody's going to have different opinions on at least something. You can't have the same opinions on everything, because if you're doing that, then you're just being a relationship chameleon. You're blending into something and losing your sense of self in order to please the person that you're talking to. There's no point in doing that. You may feel good in the moment because you're like, wow, like this person really likes me now because I like all the stuff they do. But if you actually don't like that stuff, you're losing your sense of self. And you're not being honest with yourself. But in intellectual intimacy, it's always good when you can find that rat-a-tat in a relationship. When you can find somebody that has like similar ideals as you, but stands their ground on certain things that are important to them. Because you want that conflicting interest a little bit. It keeps things spicy. You respect their opinions and they respect your opinions. You have a healthy boundary and you just keep going on as that. Something to consider. And then the last one is actually spiritual intimacy. So spiritual intimacy means feeling close, validated, and safe sharing your innermost ideas and beliefs on life's purpose and your connection to divine energies. It's still a blurred concept because it means many different things to different people, obviously, because people believe in different things as far as the afterlife and religious standpoints. Spiritual intimacy doesn't necessarily mean both people have the same beliefs, but it may involve sharing a broader concept of spirituality in general. So for example, if you both believe that you must be faithful and honest in all the things you do in life, even if you belong to different religions. Right and wrong is virtually the same thing across all religions. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. Just because, one person believes in God, one person believes in Buddha, Mother Nature, what have you. They all follow the same guidelines about being good to one another and to yourself and taking care of yourself. Family, all that stuff, it's all very intertwined. It's just the little details are different. Does that mean that one is right and one is wrong? Not necessarily, because nobody has evidence to say which is and which isn't. However, you should respect a person's beliefs on what they believe is basically at the end of the rainbow. Sharing this higher sense of purpose may develop an intimate closeness with someone and allow you to project a life together, for instance. Obviously, the thoughts of marriage and stuff like that. If you believe in the concept of marriage and what it stands for, better or worse, sickness and health and all that stuff, that builds a foundation for an emotional relationship and obviously a physical relationship. You tend to worry less about what's going on in your relationship if you can actually find somebody that believes in the same things as you. If somebody you meet believes that cheating is wrong, and they really believe it, that's one less thing you're going to have to worry about. You're never going to have to question their motives and stuff. If you believe in, once you choose to be with somebody, that's the person you're with for life, you won't have to worry as much because if they're marrying you and they're doing that, obviously that's where they stand with it. But I will say, to find someone nowadays that holds those types of beliefs, it's a very, very big jump. Things have changed so drastically, and it's so different now. I mean, we've talked about it so many times, like the online dating and people's motives and stuff. it's just very toxic nowadays. It seems like the settling down point for like the millennials and stuff is like turning into like the 40s. Because you get that realization at some point, you're like, oh shit, I don't want to die alone. I better fucking find somebody. To nourish spiritual intimacy, you may want to learn more about each other and practices and beliefs, and more significantly, why those are important to the person. So spiritual intimacy is about sharing the impact of your beliefs and what they have on your life and respecting them from the different point of view. Pretty self-explanatory. If I'm Catholic and my friend is Taoist, we believe in different things. But you have to respect one another. You know what I mean? They're your friend for a reason. Their religious beliefs and stuff like that shouldn't impact your friendship. All right, so before we start getting into like the real spicy shit, is there anything you wanted to add, Stormy?
No.
Okay. So, we are going to be talking about understanding human sexuality. We're going to go about it from the man's perspective and then over to the woman's perspective. Understanding human sexuality. So human sexuality, it's a broad term, and it encompasses a wide range of behaviors, processes, and social activities. It involves the expression of sexual sensations, attractions, preferences, and intimate interactions. So sexuality isn't confined to the physical act of it. It's deeply intertwined with our identity and relationships and how we perceive ourselves and others. The role of sex in overall health and well-being is significant. Physical sex can provide a form of exercise, obviously, boosting cardiovascular health and strengthening your immune system. It also plays an essential role in reproduction. From our psychological perspective, sex can enhance mood, foster intimacy, and reduce stress, and contribute to overall happiness and satisfaction. I think we could all say, anyone that's experienced it and stuff like that, those things do occur. I mean, even if you're just having those one-night stand, drunk, early 20s moments and stuff like that, I mean, you're doing it for a reason. There's obviously a positive that goes along with it. Moreover, though, sex contributes to our emotional health. It builds connections and intimacy with partners that could be a source of pleasure and fulfillment. Hence, understanding human sexuality in various aspects are crucial for overall well-being. Now, we're going to dive into a little bit different, because when I was doing this and stuff like that, I got asked a question, because sometimes I get asked questions in private chat on TikTok, and it was kind of inappropriate, so I kind of overlooked it, but I was like, maybe I should just throw it in there a little bit. And I got, a lot of the time, side story, a lot of the time I get hit up by these people that are like trying to be prostitutes. I don't know why TikTok has like this breeding ground for people trying to hook, but or I don't even know if it's just bots. I mean, me and Stormy talked about how she gets the sugar daddies and all this stuff. Like, there's some wild shit that goes on this app. And some of the stuff is that. And somebody must have saw, you know, what I posted for the schedule and stuff, and they messaged me and they said, how long can you go without sex? And I was like, what? And I messaged back, I was like, what? And I guess they meant to say at that point, how long can you last? And I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, why are they asking me this? So I kind of just blew it off, but I was like, you know what? I was like, that posed two good questions, though. I was like, so why don't I just throw that in there? So the first one, how long can a man go without it? While there's a lack of concrete evidence, okay, that distinctly outlines how long they can go, because people can go their entire life without it, there are some studies that suggest that it can drastically change you without having it. So, some of the things that have to do with that we're going to talk about is age. A third of men experience a lack of sexual desire, which increases as they get older. And that says, the study found that 28% of men aged 65 to 74 and 39% aged 75 to 85 reported a lack of sexual desire. Well, I mean, that's not surprising, because if you're that old, I mean, I doubt it's going to even work correctly without some boosters. Right? That's pretty good. A study published by the American Journal of Medicine showed that men in poor health had 1.6 higher odds of experiencing decreased sexual activity and 1.9 higher odds of decreased sexual desire. Hormonal levels, a study published in the same journal, found that testosterone levels decrease about 1 to 2% annually in men after they reach their 30s. and a gradual decline could be potentially a reason why they could lose that desire over time. Psychological factors that go along with not doing it. Stress and mental health can significantly influence a man's desire. If you're not emotionally healthy or emotionally well, you're probably not going to be in the mood. I can say specifically that in the past, when I first got with my kid's mom, I had no drive whatsoever. I mean, I think I was like 24, just had none, like at all. It took me probably like a month, I think, to like get my mind wrapped around it, to start getting back into a normal functioning thing. Because when I came out of a divorce and stuff like that, like, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it anymore. You know, I'd been with that person for a good portion of my life, like 7 years. So I don't know, I wasn't feeling it. So it took me a little bit to kind of get back in the motion of things. Some lifestyle factors, and this is one of the reasons as well. Substance abuse, lack of sleep, and poor diet can also affect that. That's another thing, because at the time when she came into my life, I had just gotten out of the Navy, so I was drinking a pretty good amount. And, that definitely had a lot to do with it as well. I noticed that back in my heyday, in my early 20s and stuff, when, I was drinking like hard liquor and everything, like it was a whole different breed. While I was drinking and stuff like that, I was all good to go. That was just my thing to do. When I wasn't drinking, it was a little more difficult to wrap your mind around like doing those sorts of things. And it took me a while to realize what was going on with me, and that's why. You know what I mean? So, but we'll get into that later. So, if you're not having it, if you're not doing it, then you're doing what's called abstinence, of course. You're abstaining. Like our born-again virgin Stormy, right?
That's right.
That's right. The abstinence queen. So, the physical effects of that. Now, again, this is only just talking about the men. We haven't gotten into the ladies yet, so just bear with me. Short-term abstinence says that testosterone levels remain relatively okay for short-term, and for short-term they consider less than a week. However, on the 7th day, the abstinence significantly spiked testosterone levels. So after they hit about a week of not doing it, that's when the testosterone levels are going up. You're getting like pumped. You're getting, you know what I mean? You get feeling it. And coming from a guy, and I got Steve here with me as well. When you get, what would you call that? Backed up, blue balls. Blue balls. Okay. So when you got that going on, you know what I mean? Like you get angry, you get tense. You're like that primal, like you're just angry. But then the second you take care of that, you know what I mean? It's just like the cool just washes over you and everything's fine again. I don't know why, but every guy experiences that, whether you like to admit it or not. And that's why it's so frustrating sometimes, when you're doing things and maybe you get interrupted or anything like that. Like, it could spike that. And again, we're going to get into that in just a couple minutes. It can cause a lot of stress if you're doing the abstinence and stuff, because sex or sexual release or whatever you want to call it is a release. It's a stress reliever. So how does it affect your stress levels? Stress levels have an important stay when it comes to a man without sex. Sexual activity is often associated with stress relief due to the release of endorphins and other feel-good hormones. Therefore, choosing abstinence might initially increase stress levels for some individuals. However, this is not always the case. Some people may experience decreased stress from removing concerns about unwanted pregnancies or sexually transmitted diseases. It ultimately depends on the individual's perception on the sexual experience. So, you know what I mean? Some people might be worried about being touched in general, and sex is like the last thing that's on their mind. So not having sex and abstaining from it is beneficial to them, because worrying about having to go out and find a partner to have those things and stuff may cause them more stress than actually like just staying away from it. So it really depends on you. It's not a national thing like all men need sex. It really just depends on you. Impact on relationships. The impact of abstinence on kicking boxes kind of angry? Yes. Just like, but no, because you know what? He gets it. I know who you're referring to. And he gets it quite often, Rai. And he's still kicking boxes every day. So I think maybe we're onto something. Maybe he needs to be doing it like 10 times a day. Maybe that'll get him like evened out. It could be. The impact of abstinence on relationships can significantly vary. So in some cases, partners may find that abstaining from sex can lead to a deeper emotional connection as they focus more on non-sexual forms of intimacy. So for others, it could create a tension or dissatisfaction, mainly if both partners disagree on the same page regarding the decision to abstain. Communication plays a crucial role when going through this. You know what? I think I'm on the fence about that before we jump into the self-esteem part. I think I'm on the fence about that because I believe you can have a deep, intimate relationship with somebody without the need for physical, touch. But I think eventually you will cross that bridge where there needs to be something. Somebody's bound to get bored if there is nothing whatsoever. It's one thing between doing it all the time or, having specific things like you hear about couples and stuff. They're like, Thursday night's the night. We have pizza and sex. Like something like that. Or like in New Jersey, we have pork roll and sex or Taylor ham and sex.
Oh, gosh. I wanted to talk about the women's side of it for a second before we move on. I know as far as like for myself, you have your early 20s, where it's just great. You're having sex all the time. 30s, same thing. It seems like after the 30s, especially like if you've been in long-term relationships, you've had kids, you may have had a hysterectomy. Those types of things affect your sex drive, especially the hormones. And then as you get in your 40s and 50s, it could go either way. You could either be hypersexual, want it all the time, or the opposite. I do think a lot of times, like depending on the types of relationships you've been in, that, for myself, I know not having sex does not stress me out. It's the total opposite just because of the types of relationships I was in. So for me, having a special needs child adds to that as well, as far as not having the time or the energy, that type of thing to even be worried about the sexual side of my life. So, I mean, those are some contributing factors. And sex in general, I think for the most part, if it's done in a healthy way, is good for women and men. It's just a natural thing, and it does provide a lot of healthy, beneficial things. But again, depending on the type of relationship and what's involved, it could also provide some really bad things. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely is. And again, like what Stormy said, just to reiterate, it depends on the person. It depends on what you want in life and what you're experiencing. Because as we start getting into, the darker side of things, because we're going to do the men, then the women, and then we're going to go into a little bit darker side of things, we'll start to talk about a little bit how it won't be necessarily beneficial to be intimate. Sometimes it's proactive or not proactive to be it. But the influence on self-esteem and confidence. Abstinence can have different effects on your self-esteem and confidence. For some, choosing abstinence can be a boost in self-esteem, especially if it aligns with their values and beliefs, like Stormy just spoke on. They may feel empowered to their decision and their ability to control their own body. On the other hand, societal pressure and stigmatization could potentially lead to feelings of isolation and inadequacy, negatively impacting your self-esteem and confidence. So it's something to consider as well with that. It's important to note that these effects are highly individual and can be influenced by many factors, including, some ED and things like that, that can go into effect that can ruin your self-esteem because you're like, I want to be sexual, but maybe your equipment isn't working correctly. It's something that you want to talk to your doctor about and stuff like that and see if there's an underlying issue that maybe you can get taken care of. Okay, now we are going to dive into the women's aspect. Obviously, I am not a woman, so Stormy will have to help me with this part. I am literally just going on the research and information that I've gathered over the last couple of days. A woman's desire and need for sex depends on many factors. Some of those things could be, like Stormy said, age. Sex drive may decrease with your age due to lower hormone levels, but libido can remain strong into older age. As Stormy also said, menopause. Lower estrogen levels after menopause can lead to a dip in libido. However, many women maintain healthy sex drives through that transition. Physical health. Chronic pain, disability, or other health conditions could dampen a sex drive. So if you improve your overall health, you might be able to increase that. Mental health. Depression, anxiety, trauma, and stress can reduce the interest in having sex. But managing your mental health is key to begin with, but also to help with that sex drive. Medications. Some prescription drugs like antidepressants and blood pressure medications and opioids can negatively impact your sex life. So if that's what's happening and you want to have that back, maybe talking to your doctor or something like that to switch up your prescriptions may help bring that back. A lot of people don't realize on the men and women's side, when you're taking things like Xanax or Klonopin or any of those lithium, Prozac, any of that stuff, it can really fuck with you. It can really not only mentally fuck with you, but there's a lot of other things that go along with it as far as like a decreased sex drive and stuff. And people don't realize that they're doing it to get their mental health right, but now their relationship's in trouble because like they're not feeling aroused and stuff, and their partner's getting on them. Like, these are things that you really need to look into when you're going to take those sorts of things. Like, read the bottle, read the side effects that can come along with it, and you'll be able to, map out if this is the best choice for you. Relationships issues. Relationship problems, lack of emotional intimacy, and partner sexual issues can affect the desire to do it as well. Working with the relationship if needed be, to rekindle that passion could help re-spark all that stuff. Hormonal changes. Fluctuations in hormones like estrogen and testosterone can influence libido at different life stages. We did talk about that. Sexual orientation. Sex drive can be impacted by limited sexual encounters with the preferred gender. Obviously, if you're not gay, you're not going to be turned on by the same sex. If you are gay, you won't be turned on by the opposite sex unless, obviously, you are bisexual. And but we're not going to dive into all the different sexual orientations because, we might be here a while. But you know it when you see it. Past experiences like sexual trauma or a strict upbringing or other experiences that may shape one's attitudes towards sex. That's when we start getting into the darker side of things. So we'll hold off on that for a second. There's a variety of biological and psychological and interpersonal and social factors that shape sex drives and how long they can comfortably abstain from doing so. Let's see. All right. So if you're having low libido on both sides of the coin, if a lack of sex is causing a significant or personal or relationship distress, it may be beneficial to seek professional advice. A doctor can check for underlying physical causes like for your libido, like hormone imbalances. A therapist can help address psychological ones. And for couples, relationship counseling provides tools for deepening the connections and affection. Some people in relationships, they're just not affectionate people. Some people just don't have that. Like, I know somebody that equivalents love with money rather than physical, touch or anything like that. Everybody has their own way of showing it. Some people are more of, physical touch. Some people are more of like emotional. Some people just like that comfort of being around, but necessarily don't like to go into the act of it. And I will say, I hate saying it. I hate bringing it up so much. I don't know why, but there's one thing that pisses me off more than anything, and it's when people say love language. I don't know why, but that word just irritates the ever-loving shit out of me. I wish I could put a finger on why, but I just don't know. But it's a common turn of phrase, you know what I mean, to describe to somebody how you like and how you show your levels of intimacy. I just don't like that word. I wish there was something else. We'll have to come up with something. That'll be like our goal. But yeah, essentially, what is it? How is your way of showing intimacy? You need to be open and honest with your significant other or the person that you're trying to be intimate with, whether it be even just a friend or anything like that. You have to be open. It's all about communication. Like we say in our Tuesday night healings. Talk about it. Mental wellness, work on it. In order to be mentally well and stuff like that, you have to be open and accepting to not only someone else's ideals, but to yours as well. You have to be in tune with your body. It's the mind-body connection, where you're in tune with your needs and what you need to get done and your goals and aspirations in life. Like, you have to be in tune with it and then work on them. If you don't work on them, you're never going to feel fulfilled. So, why do people have like a fear of intimacy? Fears of abandonment and engulfment. And ultimately, the fear of loss are at the heart of a fear for intimacy for many people. And these factors can coexist at the same time. So although these fears are different from one or another, both can cause behaviors that alternately pull a partner in and then push them away again. These fears are generally rooted in past childhood experiences and triggered by the here and now of an adult relationship. This leads to confusion if the person focuses on examining the relationship solely based on the present day circumstances. Fear of intimacy can also be linked to anxiety disorders. Now, we're going to jump into each one of those three. Fear of abandonment. I know anyone who has listened to my Tuesday night healings and stuff like that know exactly where this conversation is going, but we will get there soon. Those who are afraid of abandonment worry that their partner will leave them. This fear often results from the experience of a parent or another important adult figure abandoning the person emotionally or physically as a young child. I'm not going to get to it yet. Fear of engulfment. Those who have fear of engulfment are afraid of being controlled, dominated, or losing themselves in a relationship. And this fear sometimes stems from growing up in an enmeshed family. So, obviously that's a thing. If you don't like to be dominated and you like to be in control of yourself, maybe you don't want to be with somebody who's domineering. Maybe you want to be with somebody that's more laid back and, more caring to your needs rather than taking control and fulfilling their needs and their priorities. You know what you're into and you know what you like. Obviously, going through life and stuff like that, when you have different partners and stuff, you have different experiences, you have different feelings that go on. You become to, like Stormy said, in your early 20s when you're, experimenting and stuff like that, you kind of like start to figure out what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like. Maybe you're more receptive to trying different things. I'm not going to dive deep into it. We're not going to go X-rated with this, but you know what I'm talking about. Maybe there's certain things that somebody wants you to try in the bedroom that you give a shot. Maybe you're not so into. You're not going to know until you try it. So, it's all about communication. It's all about being open and, again, putting your needs first, but also communicating those needs to your partner and respecting their boundaries and their emotions and taking care of their needs as well. If you're not up to the challenge to taking care of your partner's needs, don't be in a relationship. Go back to our previous video where we went through the billion different types of relationships that are out there. What was that, 2 weeks ago? And you can find one that's more suiting to you. Maybe an open relationship. Maybe a poly relationship. There could be so many different things. Maybe you just need to find your niche in order for you to be happy. But that's something that you have to explore and do some serious inner workings to figure out what it is. An anxiety disorder. The fear of intimacy may also occur as a part of a social phobia or social anxiety disorder. Some experts classify the fear of intimacy as subsequent to 3 conditions. People who are afraid of others' judgment, evaluation, or rejection are naturally more likely to shy away from making intimate or personal connections. In addition, some specific phobias, such as fear of touch, may occur to be a part of that fear of intimacy as well. Other people, however, be comfortable in superficial social situations, numbering their acquaintances and social media friends in the hundreds, but have no deeply personal relationships at all. Funny, because we were just talking about that earlier, Stormy and myself, that there was another content creator that was kind of, losing her mind a little bit because she was focusing on losing her followers and stuff like that. And, I had to throw my 2 cents in there, because like we were talking about before, we always talk about how Blue October and Justin Furstenfeld in specific is like a huge inspiration for me. And if there's one thing that you learn from listening to his music or meeting him or listening to his live chats or anything like that, you want to help. You want to help out. If you see someone in need, you want to try to do what you can, even if it's just something simple, even if it's just paying them a compliment, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Sometimes putting in your 2 cents is just what that person needed to hear that day to help them push through a difficult situation. And it's all about helping. So, for example, today I commented on her status and I told her, maybe you should take a step back and stop worrying so much about what social media has to do and focus on what's going on with you. Because jumping in front of a camera and crying all the time is not beneficial to anybody, and people don't want to hear it. So that's why they're running in droves. You create something to help people, but all you're doing is triggering people, Obviously, you're not going to have those people around. But what does it matter in the end anyway? What does it matter if you have 5 followers or 10,000 followers? It makes no difference. I mean, they're not your immediate circle. They're not doing anything to benefit you other than float your ego. What does it matter? Mine fluctuates between the hundreds on a daily basis. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. It's not something that riles me up. I'm like, oh my God, I lost like 30 followers. So who gives a shit? I do this just for the enjoyment to help other people. It has nothing to do with, I mean, I could have 10 followers. It makes no difference. I'd still do the videos. So, just something to consider. Now, I said while we were waiting, we'll jump into it. Obviously, we're going to talk about BPD and intimacy. That's what the abandonment thing we were talking about goes with. So, what's the impact of fear of intimacy with that? So, the fear of intimacy can profoundly affect an individual's ability to form and maintain healthy relationships. Obviously, it can lead to the cycle of intense but unstable relationships that often end in heartbreak and reaffirmation of their fears to begin with. This can contribute to feelings of loneliness, emptiness, distress, and worsening emotional instability that's often associated with BPD. You don't realize, when you're in the throes of it and stuff like that, you don't realize how that fear of abandonment, that fight or flight, just kicks in. And I would say personally, to give my own example, in my last relationship and stuff like that, when I was being cheated on in the most disgusting ways possible, you know that the person's toxic. You know that they're not good. You know that you're not happy. I mean, even when everyone's telling you around you, like, you're not happy. Like, why are you in this? Like, why don't you just leave? Like, and you start rationalizing in your head, and you're just like, well, like, I love them, or I have a kid with them, or, we live together, or whatever the case may be. Like, that's exactly what was going through my head. And then, just one day, I just said, like, enough is enough. Like, I'm done with this shit. And I just packed my shit, took my kid, and was out. And, it was probably the best thing I ever did in my entire life was walk away from that. But that fear of abandonment in your head, like, you're not like, oh, I'm just afraid to be alone. But that's exactly what it is. It's that fear of abandonment. And when they're cheating on you and stuff like that, you go into, like, this fight or flight mode where you're trying to, like, oh my God, please love me. Please show me that affection. Like, how could you do that with somebody else but not me? Like, and you start going, like, nuts in your head, trying to justify what some asshole is doing to you. There's no point in it. And, sometimes you need to get help. Sometimes you need to see a different perspective or walk away from it or something like that to realize just how crazy you were being to allow this bullshit to happen. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. And my famous thing that I always talk about, nobody deserves to go to bed at night wondering why they're not good enough. Nobody deserves that. Nobody. And if somebody is going to make you go to bed that way, that should be your red flag right there. Like, fuck this, I'm out. You should be able to go to bed at night and know, like, that person cares about me. Or you look over and that person's right there with me. Like, that's what you should be worrying about. Not what the fuck they're doing in the living room on their phone. That's not right. Now, therapeutic strategies for fear of intimacy when it comes to this sort of stuff. Dialectical behavioral therapy. DBT. We've talked about this so many times. It can be particularly helpful when managing fear of intimacy and BPD. It teaches mindfulness, emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness skills, helping individuals successfully navigate their fear of it. Obviously, DBT is a very, very helpful thing. And its sister one, CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, can also help individuals identify the challenges of their beliefs about themselves and others, helping them reduce their fear of intimacy and establish healthier relationship patterns. Both are good techniques. You don't have to have BPD to learn mindfulness and learn some of the techniques from these things. It can help with a variety of mental health issues. It can also help with just regular issues like depression. There's a lot of things that you can do. But you have to look and investigate it in order to make it happen. If you sit around complacent and just feel these sort of things and don't do anything about it, you're never going to get better. You're never going to feel those types of things that you should be feeling, that every normal human being feels. Not to say that people with mental illnesses like myself are not normal. We have our own normalities and such. Just might be a little different. While the fear of intimacy and BPD can be daunting, the appropriate therapeutic interventions and support, individuals can learn to manage that fear effectively. This can pave the way for them to form healthier relationships and enhancing their emotional well-being and overall quality of life. Like I talked about before, like when I had first gotten into that relationship and stuff like that, I just didn't have the libido and everything. Like it just wasn't there. And you're coming out of that relationship. But on a more personal level, what I learned after these, so we'll say my marriage, my first 7-year relationship, and then my other one with my child's mother. What I learned from these things is that I was being embarrassed. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like the first one cheated on me with like 11 different guys in 7 years. I mean, it depends on what your version of cheating is. I mean, I believe anything of a sexual nature or intimate relationship type thing from kissing on, you know what I mean, is cheating if you're in a relationship. So yes, 11 different guys in 7 years. And I always wondered, like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? I mean, this is the first person that I had been intimate with and stuff when I was 15, like, you know, and then all these things went on. I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Is it me? Am I ugly? Like, she's not like the cut of my jib? Like, what the fuck? But, you know, it wasn't me. It was something that was going on with them. It was whatever they were feeling and what they were going through that ultimately made them make those decisions. If you're not happy with somebody, leave. It's much easier to just fucking leave than it is to do this cheating fucking nonsense. You're not just hurting, like, that person. There's could be so many other people you're hurting. What about the person that you're cheating with? Maybe if they get into you and you're just using them as a booty call, now you're just making, like, a fucking triangle of hurt. Just walk away. Just leave them. Just listen, it's not working out. You know, they'll respect you a lot more in the long run. Yeah, of course they're going to be heartbroken that you're breaking up with them, but they'll respect you as a person a lot more in the long run if you just fucking break up and walk away. And like I said, with the second relationship, in the ways, it wasn't so much because there was 3 different guys. It wasn't so much that it was the quality or quantity of 3 guys in a single year. It was more of the situations that went along with it, like the creating pornos and stuff, like sick shit. And to be able to go on my computer and find that was the most disgusting thing I have ever experienced in my entire life. And I will never forget that day because it is the worst panic attack I ever had in my whole life. I literally dropped to my knees, full blown, thinking I was having like a heart attack when I saw that video. And it was just so overwhelmingly disgusting. It's so much easier just to walk away. Don't do that to somebody because after a while they start to think when you're in these types of relationships where you're constantly getting used and abused and stuff, you really start to believe that it's something to do with you. And I mean, personally, I could say I have been single for, I think I just hit 7 years. Yeah. By choice. Not because of lack of, you know, whatever. It's strictly by choice. I'm waiting for the right person, and then when that I'm comfortable enough and stuff like that, then I'll be willing to, you know, cross that threshold. But I want to be sure before I do that I'm not going to get fucked around, because I want my next relationship to be my last relationship. I don't want to sit there and keep going through the trials and tribulations, all this bullshit. I'm just too old for it, and I don't need it. It's just not something I need. Intimacy and stuff like that for me is more like an emotional intimacy or a spiritual intimacy or an intellectual intimacy. It doesn't necessarily have to be that physical touch because, like, I haven't fucked around in years. It's just a personal choice. It's just not something I'm interested in doing at the moment. I'm looking for that more emotional connection with somebody before I go down that path. But it's just a personal choice. And it's because it starts to lose its lackluster when you're doing booty calls. It loses its lackluster when you know that you're just being used as a piece of meat or a drunk night or whatever the case may be. It doesn't help with your confidence whatsoever. If you're used to being cheated on and lied to and all that stuff, and then now you're just being used as a piece of meat, it's not benefiting you in any manner. And I learned that, like, in my 20s and stuff like that, especially that, you know, doing that, it didn't benefit whatsoever. It just made me feel more alone. It made me feel more isolated doing those sorts of things. So, you know, there came a time, like a couple years ago, and I was just like, I'm just not going to do that sort of thing anymore. Like, when I find somebody that I want to be in a relationship with, then we'll go down that path. But until that happens, I'm good. I just don't need it. Like what Stormy said, you know, you just hit a certain point in your life where it's not as, like, I don't know, it's not as important. There's far more important things in life. And, you know, that was that for me. After that last relationship and stuff like that, you know, I went on like a little spree and whatnot where I was just trying to recoup that affection that I was like longing for and stuff like that. And all I did was find emptiness. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me. And it made me take a hard look at myself and say, you know what, like, it's time to buckle down and make a change. It's time to do things the right way and stop letting yourself be abused and, you know, giving up control of what's going on with your body. So that was a big thing for me. I know it's a lot to like dig in and stuff like that, but, you know, we're always honest on these things. And that's a part of healing, is being honest and being open and being vulnerable and, you know, allowing those things to go out, because maybe one of the stories I told tonight, you know, somebody could be out there and they could be having a similar situation or face something similar like however long ago. And now they don't feel as alone. Oh, that's why I don't like being touched. Like, oh, he's saying the same thing. Like, now I feel a little more normalized. It could be. You never know. But that's why we're open and honest about these things. Now, before we jump into the fun facts and questions, Stormy, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, for me personally, I am a old school type of girl where, you know, I want the 50, 60-year marriage, you know, like my grandparents had. But it seems like every generation, even my mom and dad got divorced. My grandparents were married 50 plus years. I was married, but I was with that person for like 17 years. And then my second long-term relationship, we never got married, but we had a child together. But it seems like for me, like the decline in that, not just necessarily the sexual thing of it, but when the internet in the mid 90s to late 90s, when the internet came about, it kind of opened up this whole new sexual experience for people. And I think people, you know, pretty much have went crazy since then, because you have so many choices of people you can sext with, or you can, you know, have an online relationship with, but not a physical relationship with. It's nothing like the traditional, you know, date somebody, marry them, and live the rest of your life with them. So it's kind of like that kind of drives, you know, people's relationships sexually, I think, more, especially people that are like hooked on dating sites or just, you know, the sexual side of online dating.
Mm-hmm. And I will say too, like, okay, I'm not against, you know what I mean, porn or anything like that, but I think that has a lot to do with how intimacy has gotten so fucked up over the years. The availability to porn and stuff like that, and how it's become so, like, widely accepted. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not against it, but it's just, you know, it kind of ruins that experience too, because not only is it over-sexualizing people to the point where, like, they got OnlyFans and stuff like that, and, like, your neighbor down the street can have an OnlyFans, like, there's just all this over-sexualization stuff. And then especially with porn and stuff, you know, you're seeing, like, bizarre scenarios or overplaying orgasms and stuff like that. And then you think, like, if you go to have sex, that this person's not, like, screaming at the top of her lungs, like, saying all this disgusting stuff. You're like, oh, man, well, like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe on the flip side of that, like, you're not having, like, these, like, crazy orgies or anything, you know? Maybe you're like, well, what the fuck is going on? That's not how sex is supposed to be had. I mean, it's been happening since time immemorial, but that's not necessarily how it's supposed to be happening. Personally, I'd rather have an emotional connection with somebody where that, you know, the having sex or making love aspect comes in. I'd rather have that. It's a deeper emotional connection, and to be that enthralled with somebody where you have that closeness and everything, I feel like that would be way better than, you know, doing any of that other shit. But it's a personal preference, I guess. You know what I mean? Some people are into certain things, and that's okay too. Whatever gets you happy, as long as you're healthy and safe, shouldn't really matter. It's just a personal thing. So we're going to jump into our last part here before we wrap up. So fun facts and questions. Questions that I've received, like the one I said that earlier. Here was a fun one. How long should a man last? I looked up the study. Because I was kind of curious myself as well. You know what I mean? That depends on many factors and can vary depending on time. So if you were to measure it on a stopwatch, the average, and I hate to say this, ladies, but the average is 5 to 7 minutes for a guy. Not this.
That's accurate.
Yeah. Okay. So not like the 30 minutes that porn's like hyping it up to, where you're doing 47 different positions. You know what I mean? Like a normal thing for a guy is actually 5 to 7 minutes. Now, if it's to pump and dump kind of deal, maybe there's some issues that's going on there. Maybe it's been a long time. Maybe it's a premature thing. Something you might want to get checked out, though. But guys, don't feel bad. If it's only less than 10 minutes, as long as it's between the 5 and 7, you're average. You're just as good as the next one.
Unless you practice tantric.
Okay? Or what Steve said, unless you're practicing tantric, then you can get better. You can increase your length and libido and everything. So it depends on what you want.
I was going to say, as a woman, they may not necessarily have reached their pleasure in the 5 to 7 minutes, but there's other things you can do with your significant other to relieve their tension as well.
As they said in the movie, it's more the woman's ability and willingness to find out the infinite number of orgasms she's willing to have.
That's true as well.
But you know what? Not for nothing, too. I was raised as a gentleman.
Yeah.
You're supposed to allow your partner
first,
yes,
because it takes
before
them longer
you do
to
it.
get right.
Yes, you want to make sure your partner is fulfilled and satisfied
before yourself.
Yes, because you know it's not going to take you very long, and you know pretty much that after that you're going to be fucking shot.
And I don't know, me personally, I think it's more hot when a guy pleasures a woman first and foremost before it's more like a turn on to him, for me anyway.
Oh, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Get the woman aroused.
Right. And like I was just saying, you know what I mean? After you have that first round and stuff like that, it leads us to our sexing question. How long does it take for a man to be ready for round 2?
Not very long.
But wait. According to studies, 18-year-old men have a refractory period of about 15 minutes, while those in their later 60s to 70s take about 20 hours to recharge, with the average for all men being approximately about 30 minutes for most age range.
I think they should talk to Al Pacino and Robert De Niro.
Well,
they're pumping out babies.
Listen, I'm sure they're using boosters to fucking do that. I'm sure Robert De Niro ain't popping it at 80. You know what I mean? Maybe, I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Al Pacino could be like, ooh-ah!
Ooh-ah! Unless they have a...
So, and there's some people, apparently, that only have a refractory period of less than 10 seconds. God bless you and your fucking ability to just keep on going. You should get the Energizer Bunny tattooed right on your ass cheek so they know what to expect right when you're coming through. Why do men's mood change after they finish? Okay. So, this is because the rush of orgasm, dopamine levels drop below your baseline, similar to what happens during withdrawal from drugs, from drug abuse. So low dopamine levels are associated with depression, low energy, and lack of ambition, social anxiety, amongst other things. As I'm sure any guy will tell you, when you're all in the mood and stuff like that, you're all about it, you're all into it and stuff like that, and then when the moment's over, you could just knock out and take a nap. Or, you know what I mean, have a cigarette after sex, which is also a fantastic thing. It was always one of my favorite parts about it. But it's a personal preference. Some people don't like that sort of thing. But that brings us to our conclusion about intimacy. And to wrap it up with the final thoughts on that, it's, find out what it is that it means to you. What is intimacy? Final thoughts on that, it's, find out what it is that it means to you. What does intimacy mean to you? Figure it out. Look deep within yourself. Journal it. I always suggest writing and stuff like that. It's always a good way to outlet to something that you're not being judged or anything, and you can look back on it and retrace your steps and figure out what it is that you like. Find out. Find out if you're a touchy-feely type of person. Find out if you're like a more emotional affection and being told about like loving or sweet gestures, or if it's money or whatever the case may be. Find out what it means to you. And then find somebody that's willing to accept it and understand it and nurture it. You can't be in a healthy relationship if the other person isn't meeting your intimacy levels. If they're taking too much from you or not giving you enough of what you need, you're never going to be happy. You have to find that common middle ground. Now, that's not to say that there's going to be a person out there that meets it on every level. It could be, but it's not guaranteed. But as long as you can meet somebody that respects your ideals and the way that you view things, then you have a good start right there. And then more than that, you can find someone who runs on the same wavelength of FM and AMs. Yes, that would be another way of looking at it as well. You want to find somebody that you can trust, that you can be open with, that you can be honest with. It is hard nowadays to find those sorts of things, but when you find it, you know what I mean, it will be worth it. It will be. You just have to look for it. Be patient. Don't rush into things. Give your time to adjust, to think about this change of life that's going on. Like, am I into this person? Do I want to be with this person? Really, let it sit for a minute. Think about it. When you rush into things, you may overlook certain things about people and not really know the person that you're being with. But when you intellectually start to find somebody or be with somebody, then you'll really start to appreciate the lackluster of the relationship itself. And, at the end of the day, it's all about being happy. We always talk about how short life is and stuff like that, and you want to be able to be happy. Take it by the horns and make the most of it while you can, because one day you won't be able to. Be patient with others, be kind to others, be open with others, do a random kindness for a stranger. Just have that caring and that emotional ability to love and be loved. Because when you can find that and you can have that, you know what I mean? It's a great feeling. It's something that people always strive for and they look for in life. So you want to be able to be patient and understand people's situations and understand their concerns. Listen to their wants and needs. Find out if that's something that you can accept and take in. And if it is something that you want to take the responsibility of, then be honest and open about it. Don't keep all that shit bottled in, because then the other person's not going to know your true intentions. Just be open and honest. The only reason why people tell lies is because they're afraid. And if you're not afraid of anything, there's no reason for you to tell lies. Just be open and honest, and people will accept you and respect you a lot more when you are that way. Now, coming up this Thursday, I know I have been slacking terribly when it comes to reading Paradise Reborn. For some reason, I just keep getting re-injured on Wednesdays and winding up in the hospital. So it makes Thursdays a little difficult. But, knock on wood, I'm on the mend. Things are going good right now. So, we will be doing, one way or another, even if I have to fucking broadcast it from the hospital, we will be reading Chapter 12 of Paradise Reborn, and we will fucking get through this. As far as updates with the new book, I just did an additional 8 pages today. I have 3.5 chapters to go, and I am done. I still believe I'm going to hit that April milestone after it's all reviewed, said, and done. When I get an official date, I will let you know, but I am still aiming for that April release date. The following Tuesday, our next healing, I released the schedule of what we are going to be doing as far as our Tuesday night healings going forward for the next 5 weeks. Our next one is about panic attacks. I'm sure many, many people can relate to those or know someone at least who deals with them. If at any point, like we always say, anyone wants to join on for our discussions, to jump in and co-host with us or give your inputs and stuff, not only can you use the comments section, but you could also let me know which subject you're interested in joining, and we'd be happy to have you co-host with us and get your input on the different things. It's always best for the audience and stuff like that to get more rounded opinions on what people believe, because maybe what I believe may seem foreign to you, but maybe something that Stormy says is right on par to what you're feeling. So the more voices that we have to uplift each other, the more we can understand one another. With that being said, Stormy, is there anything you wanted to add before we close out?
No, sir. Just that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. It's going along with the whole sexual, let's talk about sex. Happy Valentine's Day to those who are in relationships and those who are not in relationships.
That's right.
The best thing for me is the candy is on sale after tomorrow. So I will be getting some chocolate. So that is sexually appealing to me.
That's it. Stormy's going to have her intimate relationship
so
with
enjoy
chocolate.
some chocolate, ladies.
Did you want to add something?
I say this house is a George Michael. If you don't mess with George Michael, you're not allowed in this house.
That's damn right.
Listen to George Michael. He covers everything we just talked about. He talks about faith, giving her everything she wants.
That's right.
He talks about
You ain't never going to dance again.
You ain't never gonna dance again. Losing your heart on Christmas.
That's right. That's right.
And sex is best when it's one-on-one.
There you go.
There you go.
Amen.
Something to think about. Something to think about. Now you put on your Wham album and you get it going tonight. You get ready for Valentine's Day tomorrow. You get that intimacy going. And hopefully our talk tonight gave you that extra understanding to go in there and grab your loved one tonight and say, hey, baby, tell me about your needs. Let me help you out. Let's make this Valentine's Day one to remember. And I will